I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the growing wealth inequality that's at the root of many of these demonstrations and protests in Lebanon. After all, Hariri is one of Lebanon's richest people. He's worth about $2 billion, and it's been a tough week for world leaders who are billionaires. Over in Chile, Sebastián Piñera, another billionaire, is having massive protests in the streets as well against wealth inequality. How has this widening gap affected Lebanon?
So about 1% of the people in Lebanon control or hoard, I should say, the majority of the wealth. And in the past decade, that has incrementally grown. Since the beginning of this year, there's been also demonstrations because of recently passed austerity measures. There's been cuts to the only public university in Lebanon, the Lebanese University. There's been cuts to various ministries, such as the Environment Ministry, that is crucial to maintain as we're continue to face an environmental crisis. There's been additional taxes that primarily impact the working class and the poor. And we see, and also because Lebanon has one of the highest debt-to-GDP ratio at almost 150%, making Lebanon the third most indebted country in the world. So this public debt that is at almost $89 billion and continuously growing, the servicing of this debt primarily benefits the wealthy at the expense of the very poor. So there's a lot of anger on the street, and these demonstrations have somewhat been referred to by the international press as a WhatsApp revolution. That's far from the truth. WhatsApp was a very, very small trigger to what is happening here. There were also plans to not only add a tax of about 20 cents per day, amounting to a maximum of $6 per month. And also, for context, WhatsApp is used by almost everybody in the country, and especially because telecommunication costs are so expensive. So what we see is a gradual increase in taxes that do not really serve people who are being taxed, and tax evasion by the most wealthy and by the banking sector.
You mentioned more than $80 billion in debt. Who holds that debt? What countries are benefiting specifically, or what financial groups from the Lebanese debt crisis?
It's not really the international community that's benefiting. It's actually the local banking sector that benefits from the servicing of this public debt. And of course, some members of the international community, Saudi Arabia, Gulf states, and others. But for the most part, it is the local banking sector that is benefiting. And the local banking sector is very tightly affiliated or close to the political class. So they're in essence serving each other.
Can you talk about, you've described this as a really anti-capitalist mobilization. Can you also talk about how this dates back to, and what were the trash protests of 2015 that this has been building?
I'll just briefly talk about the 2015 demonstrations that were ignited after a garbage crisis that continues to be unresolved. And again, the primary difference between what is happening now and what is happening then, and even though in 2015 there was a lot of anti-capitalist sentiment that was expressed, we see it much more vividly today. One of the main protest sites is actually at the central bank. People have been there for almost 2 weeks. They are calling for not only the downfall of the current political class, but they're also calling for the downfall of the governor of the central bank, Riyad Salameh. They are also calling for the downfall of the rule of the bank in Lebanon.